On February 13th, 2017, two teenage girls went for a hike in a small Indiana town. They were dropped off at a trailhead at 1:30 in the afternoon. By 3:15, no one could reach them. By the next morning, both of them were dead. Their names were Abby Williams and Libby German. Abby was 13, Libby was 14. Best friends, middle schoolers. The kind of girls who sent each other Snapchats constantly and argued over whose turn it was to pick the movie. That day, a Monday, a day off school, they decided to hike the Delphi Historic Trails, a quiet stretch of woods and old railroad trestles in Carroll County, Indiana. Population, about 3,000 people. The kind of place where everybody knows everybody. Libby's older sister dropped them off at the trailhead on Mears Road. They planned to walk the trail, cross the old Monon High Bridge, a rusted railroad trestle suspended 60 feet above Deer Creek, and get picked up on the other side. It was a normal afternoon in a town where nothing bad ever happened. The last confirmed sighting of the girls was at 2:07 p.m. A photo Libby posted to Snapchat showed Abby walking across the Monon High Bridge, the old wooden planks rotting beneath her feet, the creek far below. It was the last photo ever taken of Abby Williams. By 3:15, Libby's older sister couldn't reach either of them. She drove to the trailhead, no sign of them. A search party went out that evening, family, neighbors, locals who knew the trails. They searched through the night. The next morning, February 14th, 2017, Valentine's Day, searchers found the bodies of both girls in the woods along Deer Creek, less than a mile from where they had been dropped off. Both had been murdered. Carroll County didn't have a homicide unit. The Indiana State Police took over immediately. The FBI was brought in within days, and then investigators discovered something that would change everything about this case. Libby German had her phone in her pocket the entire time. And before she died, she hit record. What she captured on that phone is something law enforcement has rarely, if ever, seen before. The footage showed a man walking toward the girls on the bridge, heavy-set, baseball cap pulled down, hands in his pockets, moving with slow, deliberate purpose. He wasn't hiking, he was hunting. But it wasn't just video. Libby had also captured audio, and on that audio, a voice. Low, gravelly, calm. 2 words, down the hill. That voice belonged to their killer. Investigators immediately understood what they had. A photo of the suspect, his voice. A direct recording made moments before the murders. It was more evidence than most homicide cases ever produce. In April 2017, police released the photo publicly. A grainy still frame from the video, the man walking across the bridge. They also released the audio clip of those 2 words. The image went viral within hours. He became known simply as Bridge Guy. Tips flooded in from across the country, thousands of them. The FBI processed everyone. And for 5 years, nothing led to an arrest. Let's talk about why. The investigation into the Delphi murders was one of the most complex, frustrating, and closely watched cold cases in modern American history. Police had more evidence than usual, and they still couldn't close it. Part of the problem was the sheer volume of tips. When a case goes national, you don't just get useful leads. You get thousands of dead ends. Investigators spent years chasing names that went nowhere. Part of it was the nature of small-town crime. When the suspect lives nearby, everyone has a theory. Rumors circulated constantly about who Bridge Guy was. People accused neighbors, co-workers, ex-husbands. The community fractured. In 2019, investigators released an updated sketch of the suspect. The description had changed slightly. The new sketch showed a younger-looking man than the original. Some people thought this meant police had new information. Others thought it created more confusion. In 2021, Unsolved Mysteries featured the case in a new episode on Netflix. The tips surged again. Hundreds of new calls, new names, new theories. Still nothing. The families of Abby and Libby gave interviews. They pushed for answers publicly. Advocates created websites and podcasts dedicated to the case. True crime communities online built elaborate timelines, identified potential suspects, and debated the evidence endlessly. And the man on the bridge, whoever he was, appeared to have vanished. But investigators had never stopped working. Behind the scenes, they were quietly following a digital trail. In 2022, the trail led somewhere. Investigators had been tracking a Snapchat username, Anthony_shots, that had been flagged years earlier in connection with the case. The account had been used to contact underage girls in the area around the time of the murders. The digital forensics team traced the account. It led to a man named Richard Matthew Allen. Allen was 50 years old. He had lived in Delphi his entire life. He worked at the CVS pharmacy on Main Street. He was married. He had a daughter. People in town knew him as a quiet, unremarkable guy. He was not on anyone's radar, but investigators found something that stopped them cold. Cell tower data placed Allen's phone at the Monon High Bridge Trail on the afternoon of February 13th, 2017, the exact time the girls were there. And when they searched his home, they found unspent ammunition, a rare caliber, the same caliber as a casing found near the girls' bodies. When investigators brought Allen in for questioning, he confirmed he had been on the trail that day. He said he saw two girls on the bridge. He said he turned around and walked back to his car. He said he left. Investigators didn't believe him. On October 26, 2022, 5 years and 8 months after the murders of Abby Williams and Libby German, Richard Allen was arrested and charged with 2 counts of murder. The town of Delphi was stunned. This wasn't a drifter, wasn't a stranger from somewhere else. It was someone who had been there the whole time. Shopping at the same stores, driving the same roads, living in the same town as the families of the girls he allegedly killed. For 5.5 years. What happened after the arrest was almost as shocking as the arrest itself. Allen was held at a maximum security prison while he awaited trial. His mental state deteriorated rapidly. He gave a series of statements to law enforcement in which he appeared to confess to the murders, then recanted, claiming he had no memory of what he had said. His original attorneys withdrew from the case, new defense attorneys took over, and immediately went on offense. They filed motions claiming the evidence had been mishandled, that the cell tower data was unreliable, that the ammunition match was circumstantial, that their client had been coerced into making statements while mentally compromised. Then they introduced a theory that stunned the courtroom. The defense claimed the murders were not committed by Richard Allen at all, but were instead a ritualistic killing carried out by a local group with ties to Norse paganism, specifically a practice called Odinism. They alleged this group had connections to local law enforcement, that evidence had been planted, that Richard Allen was an innocent man being framed. The judge overseeing the case became so concerned about leaks and media coverage that he took the extraordinary step of sealing thousands of pages of case documents, an unprecedented move that drew national attention and legal challenges. The original defense attorneys were disbarred mid-case for leaking sealed documents to the media. They were later reinstated on appeal. By the time the trial began in October 2024, the Delphi case had become one of the most complicated, contentious, and closely watched criminal proceedings in Indiana history. The trial lasted 2 weeks. Prosecutors methodically laid out their case, the cell tower data, the ammunition, Allen's own statements, the Snapchat account, witness testimony placing him on the trail. They played the audio, that voice, those 2 words, down the hill. The defense pushed back on everything. They challenged the forensic methodology. They called the confessions coerced and unreliable. They returned again and again to the Odinism theory, the idea that the real killers were still out there. The jury deliberated. On October 28, 2024, Richard Matthew Allen was found guilty on 2 counts of murder in the first degree. He was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. He will never leave prison. The families of Abby Williams and Libby German made statements after the verdict. They thanked investigators. They thanked the community. They said they hoped to find some measure of peace. They asked the public to let the girls rest. And for many people, that was the end of the story. A terrible crime, a long investigation, a conviction, justice served, but the questions haven't gone away entirely. Allen's legal team has filed appeals, arguing the trial was compromised from the start. Online communities continue to debate the evidence. Some people remain convinced he is innocent. Others believe he had accomplices who were never charged. The full contents of the sealed documents have never been made public. The Snapchat data that originally flagged Allen's account has never been fully disclosed, and the details of exactly what happened on that trail, what Libby's phone captured beyond what was released publicly, remain known only to investigators and the court. Maybe that information will come out on appeal. Maybe it won't. What we know for certain is this. On February 13, 2017, Abby Williams and Libby German walked onto the Monon High Bridge in Delphi, Indiana. A man followed them. They never came home. The investigation that followed took nearly 6 years. It involved thousands of tips, federal resources, digital forensics, and more public attention than almost any cold case in recent memory. And through all of it, it was a 14-year-old girl's instinct to hit record that made it possible. Libby German didn't know what she was doing in those final minutes. She was scared. She was doing the only thing she could think to do. She left a record. And because of that, the man who killed her and her best friend is spending the rest of his life in prison. Abby Williams, Libby German. They were 13 and 14 years old. They deserve better than what happened to them on that February afternoon. That's the evidence room. New case next week.